Don't do that.
What?
What are you doing?
Well, I'm about to talk. Alright. Want you to meet someone. Lana. Okay, ready? Are you going? Alright. I've got a preview for both of you, which I reckon is going to be the duck's guts. Look at it. Do you like it?
It's magnificent. I've never seen anything like it.
Do you know what that is?
No.
That's my next project. It's a Wolseley 14. 1937, so I'm sort of hurrying to get this done because this car's on the way. So this is going to be a cracking deal. Look at that, 1937 patina, original. So we'll clean it up, and that's the Jack All System bottle.
What do you
Now,
think, Mum?
Do you like it, Suze?
Yes.
You don't sound convinced. Susie's not into cars, but she can't wait to get into this car on Club Runs. She said that just before, didn't you, Suze?
Yes.
One thing I always do when I do a car up is I keep a book, a receipt book on it. This is the Galaxies. And it starts off with some information, all receipts, an account of what I've spent. Hard to get bits and pieces, distributor caps. There's also a full account of everything I've done and the costs. And you can see here everything it owes me, dates of all the work that I've done. It's like a diary on the car. The Wolseley one's considerably smaller because I've only just begun this car. One of the things I do, aside from receipts, is draw maps where wires go. This is a map of the bulkhead with all the holes. These BMC cars have a mountain of holes in them, and what comes out of them, where the choke cable comes out, oil pressure gauges and all that sort of stuff. So I always keep an account of that, so when I reassemble it, I can put it all back the way it came out. Now I've started fitting the engine bay out. I'm just putting some grommets in, there's the starter solenoid and whatnot. Not happy with the colour. Now, as far as an engine bay is concerned, it's fine, but it's not going to be any good when I come to do repairs. And it looks a little bit sort of bluer. The original colour is sort of paler and a bit creamier. Now I've got some reduced white I can put in there, and a little bit of ochre tint. And look, I don't want to sound like a wanker. I know a little bit about paint from working in a paint shop when I was at university. Admittedly it was Bunnings and it was house paint, but it's still playing around with tinters and whatnot, so I'm going to play around with that and try and get the colour closer. Where I've done repairs, I don't like to use much filler. They reckon you can use up to 1/4 inch of it. I only ever use about 1/8. This has got about a 1/16. I welded a plate in there, so I've got to fix that, so it's important the colour's quite close. There's also a little bit of rust coming up around here. But up in these sorts of areas, it's important that the colour's pretty right. I can hide error at the bottom of the boot lid. There's a little bit there, and I can sort of paint it underneath that swage line, so you won't notice that. But there are little bits and pieces in very obvious places that need to be addressed, and the colour needs to be accurate. I mentioned in the last video to knock a few holes around the bottom of the rim. I normally knock about 4. It's particularly effective with reduced paints, but when you have unthinned paints like this, you can still get paint gathering around the rim, and when you go to knock the lid back on, it can splash up. So it's always good practice just to chuck a rag over and then knock it down, and that'll stop any splash coming out and hitting anything. Not happy with the colour match here. I'm just going to modify the colour, and I'm just going to blow a little bit in here just to see if I can get it a bit better. And that looks a lot closer to what was there. I like to muck around with paint every now and then. I had a bit of paint left over from this Galaxy, and added a bit of this yellow ochre tint, and came up with this lovely cream colour on the trailer. That's actually the Wolseley's hubcap. I'm going to do the same thing for these wheels. Someone's pressure packed these with white, and I think the cream on these sorts of wheels will look a lot nicer on that car. I'll do the rear Venetian the same sort of colour as well. The trailer used to have these manky Datsun wheels on them, and I think the Austin Wolseley ones look much better. It's particularly good because the stud pattern's the same and the wheel offset works as well. Starting to feed some of the wiring through again. I've re-taped some of it where it had blue overspray on, so it looks nice and fresh. This is where labelling things is so important. There's a corresponding map that I've got in the folder which shows where all these wires go to. I've re-taped down here. I've left all this untaped, or I haven't changed the tape on it. There's still some blue overspray and that sort of thing. It's a bit annoying, but I want to put quartz halogen lights in this, the old rounded type ones, and I'm going to run a couple of relays, and so it's a matter of where I'm going to put the relay. I've got to decide where I'm going to put all this stuff yet, so I'll leave that undone and I'll change the loom from there forward to the other side because I won't be using some of that wiring. Okay, we're going to have a look at the steering box now. Make sure you don't pull on that, miss.
Okay.
You've got to take the lid off. The first thing to do is check with these things. It hasn't leaked oil, which is good. I've got it sitting on this bit of wood, which is a little bit precarious, and I'm worried about it falling off. It's not all that sturdy up here, but it gives me a chance to be able to turn it and make sure it's not rough at all. Now I've got a steering wheel here. I'm just going to stick it on the end. Probably won't be able to see.
Yeah, we can't see your face.
You can see my stomach though.
We can see the thing going round and round and round.
That's alright. Now there is a little bit of a stiff bit on the high spot, but generally that's pretty good. It's smooth, and I've felt these things. Sometimes they feel a little bit rough. The first thing we've got to do is take
Hey, Daddy.
Yeah.
There's on a red thing which says REC.
That means it's recording.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is take this off. Now, this was full of oil. Now, I've seen these things full of grease. I've seen them leak out and run dry. Not a good thing. This was still full of oil. It was clean oil. It was gear oil, which is the right stuff. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'll take the lid off and we'll have a look now. Alright, and looking on the edge of this worm, there is a bit of wear on the hardening. The important thing is to rotate it and have a good look at it. I can't really see it from back here. It doesn't look bad though. When I turn the camera off, I can probably get a better look at it. There's a bit of pitting there. These things are downright impossible to get a hold of though. I might actually have to take that arm off and have a good look in there, just to make doubly sure it's right. There was a modification done, I think in the Mark 1, where the cam, the little peg that runs in that valley, was modified. The angle of it was modified to make it run a bit better and have a bit less wear. The way it works, of course, is there's a grub screw on the top that pushes this down, which pushes the peg into that V more. It's a wedge-shaped peg, and that takes your slack out of the steering. The higher it is, the more slack, because you've got the tip of the wedge in there in the valley. The lower it is, the tighter it is, but that's not always a good thing, because if you have it too tight, it won't self-center when you come out of a corner. It'll be very stiff to move. So very important to check it properly. It actually looks pretty good. It's certainly smooth to the touch. Just check the end float and reference everything that you're doing to the workshop manual. The workshop manuals for these cars is very easy to get, but this is a big plus. Here's another old one out of a 2480, and you can see the hardening is absolutely destroyed. This was a very raspy wheel to use, and it's pretty well destroyed. It's alright on the back face, but on this forward edge it's had it. I was going to make a drift out of this or a slide hammer. I ended up deciding to do something far more practical with it. You can actually mount a steering wheel on, and as you can rotate them as you paint them after you've done all your filling and so forth. So I'll do another video on that. As you can see, the fit out's going quite well. I've put the bonnet cable in, the regulators all in and wired. It took me a while to get the all the overspray off there in the fuse box, but that's looking pretty good. Bits and pieces are done. That's a bit of VK Commodore radiator hose. The spigot on this is a little bit bigger than the old one was, because I've used a piece of 1560 exhaust pipe to weld over the old original spigot, which has made it a bit wider. Other fittings to go on for the throttle and so forth. Still has all its anodizing, which is nice to find. Now in fitting out, I've got to put the wiper mechanism back in, and this is a series of a couple of little gearboxes which I'll pull apart and I'll grease and clean and all the rest of it. It's an absolute pet hate of mine when people use house products on cars. House paint's terrible to get off. These clowns have used liquid nails construction adhesive, which is really, really difficult to remove. It just makes future work 10 times harder. I always like to use new fasteners, bolts if you like, and lock washers on the car. It isn't entirely necessary, but it gives it a much nicer and finished off, restored sort of look. It's important with these sorts of things that you get the right type of bolt, not just in the thread, but in the hardening as well. And there's different grades of hardening of high tensile bolts. So when you start bolting in front end stuff, it's very, very important. Now, a lot of old cars have a reputation for having crummy electricals, and some of them do, some of them don't. The thing is, the first thing you need to do with any electrical problem is start at the very, very beginning. Start with the basic stuff. And in most of the cases I've come across, it's where they're earthed and how they're earthed. If these earth points aren't clean, you'll get all sorts of backfeeds through your wiring. Now, in the case of the back of the car, a bad earth can cause all sorts of symptoms like flashing brake lights instead of indicators. They often confuse and bamboozle when things go wrong, so you need to make sure these earth points are nice and clean. One of the most important earth points on the car is the strap that goes between the engine and the chassis. If that engine and transmission isn't earthed properly, because don't forget they're rubber mounted, the earth will actually come through the speedo cable in a lot of cases and seize it. I'm using new fasteners, as I said before. These are normal lock washers. The best ones to use for earth points are star washers. They cut in several places on both sides, but this will certainly suffice. And also, they tend to earth through the thread as well. And that's nice and neat. If you sit there with a screwdriver and try and scrape it, you can find it won't look nearly as tidy. Now, they're nice. I'll clean these up with a bit of wet and dry, and I know that's going to be a good earth. So I've taken all the brake lines off, and I'm measuring out. I'm just using a piece of wire here to calculate exactly how long I want the new ones to be. I'm going to change all the brake lines because some of them look a bit rusty and a bit manky, so I'm going to put new ones on. So we just get bits of masking tape, and we follow the line all the way around so we get exactly the right size. And continue around until we get to here. So what we're using to make these new hoses, we're using Bundy tube. This is 3/16. It's very reasonable and cheap to buy. All you basically do to unroll it, don't wrestle with it, roll it off against a hard surface and you'll get it nice and straight. I should have used string actually. I normally use string, but I couldn't find the string I normally use. And then we just make a mark here. Now there's a little bit of room either side, probably about 4 or 5 millimetres either side of this to allow for flaring too once the pipe's done. You can't cut this with side cutters, otherwise it'll squash. I've had these flared professionally. The only way to do it, in my opinion, I could muck around with this sort of thing at home, but I think you charge $10 for 3 hoses. Use the old nuts and just put new fittings on here. I sort of know the guy, so it was a bit of an unfair advantage that way, but I always get these things done professionally. The main thing to do is to fit it up to the car to see precisely how it's meant to be. And when you bend this stuff, you want to put your thumb behind it and just apply pressure inwards, if you know what I mean. If you try and bend it like that, it'll just kink and then you've absolutely blown your chances of using it. And you just do trial mock-up fits on the car as you go, and then you know whether you're on the right track or not. You really do have to fiddle with it a bit to make sure it's nice and snug where it needs to be and you get the curves all right.
So Dad, you want to tell us what you've been doing?
Right now, I've nearly got it finished and ready for the engine. Today we've done a bit of bodywork. Come around here and I'll show you. Bit of filling there. There's metal all behind here. That's all bare metal there. There's only a very, very, very light skim of bog on there. Just to tidy it up, make it a bit more sort of even. Fortunately, there were a couple of rust bubbles, but there was solid steel behind, which I managed to get rid of all the surface rust and all looks good. Around here, that looks a bit manky. That fuel filter, that comes off. The new one comes in with the engine when it goes back in. Got to put the WIPO motor in today, and the drive for it, and I'll go through that. We'll also put the master cylinder on. And I need to mock up lines, or the length of lines. The other ones that came off are really, really sort of distorted and horrible. So I'll use cable and sort of tape it along here so I can get the right length when the booster goes in. And we can do that. And once that's done, we'll wrap it up and we should be ready to put the motor in next time.
Sounds good.
Yep. Let's stick this master cylinder on. I made up a little gasket for the back of it, so it's all nice and kosher. And I'm going to stick it in here. Oh, look. Look. Alright. You can turn it off now.
No, this is really fascinating. I want the viewers to see, you know, this birth of a car. A rebirth of a car, sorry.
I thought you were going to say better that than an afterbirth of a car, isn't it?
When are you going to finish it?
Well,
Never.
no, I will. No, when was the last time I hadn't finished a car?
Yesterday.
No, I always like that reason, yeah. I've always finished cars and start. I can't stand unfinished projects, and I'm not going down that road. So, no, it will be finished, but I reckon I'll try and get it roadworthy to Easter. I'll just tighten that up. And then I want to mock up some lines for it. And we've got to put that wiper motor in. In fact, I need to tell you something that you didn't know.
Oh,
This
the
car-
secrets are coming out now. Scandal at the Anderson residence.
This car is a 65, not a 64. I'm blown away.
Is that supposed to mean something to us?
Well, it does, and I'll tell you why. This car was supposed to be 64, but if you look on
So
the
the-
wiper motor...
So the people who you bought it from, they lied to you.
Well, BMC never put dates on it. If you look at this, check this out. 12V265. You probably won't be able to see it there,
No.
it won't focus. 265 February 1965. Now, could have had a new wiper motor in it in the time, well, between any time between 1965 and now, 64 and now, but it's unlikely. I've been a mechanic at 6 different dealerships and had about 50 different cars and never changed the wiper motor. So I'm tipping it's the original one. It's not sort of the be all and end all, but it could well be the original one.
I'm bored. I need a glass of wine.
I want to put this wiper motor on now. Whenever you store these sorts of things, you put them in a bag because the worm will get all dirty and attract muck and all the rest of it. So I'll take this out.
Bye, Annie.
You don't want this thing getting dirty. So we want to grease it up now. I'm just going to put a little bit of grease around it. Messy, horrible job this. At least then it'll move freer in the cable. This is high temperature bearing grease. You want to use high temperature grease because you don't want it to drip anywhere. If you use Vaseline or anything like that, it's just going to go over all over your feet. I'm going to feed it in now. Very important you don't have the wiper blades on because as you push it they're going to spin. That's assuming that it all goes in. Oh no! Here we go, see it spinning? Can I have that rag?
No.
Because I don't want to scratch everything up, so I'll just put that there. Your mother actually loves this sort of thing. She told me the other day,
She looks very interested.
watching me put wiper motors in is the duck's guts. Didn't you, sir?
Yes, darling.
You said you can't wait to watch me put more car parts in this car.
Did I?
Because it's your car. She doesn't know it yet, it's her car.
Oh.
I'd rather a Farina.
It is. It's a blue one, Suze. Most Ferraris are red.
It's in disguise right now, you know. We're only halfway through the production phase, so...
It's a little bit narrower and sort of
Yeah.
taller than a Ferrari, but you don't worry about things like that. It's a prototype.
Mum, it's got to get ugly before it gets beautiful.
It's got to let a few things before it gets beautiful. I'm just trying to mock up. Got to mock up some brake lines.
Hi, Rosie.
You're good with kids.
Yup.
You should be in
What's the
childcare.
secret to your...
I'm the best big sister
Go away.
Got to make up new lines.
of cocaine. You should see where I am on this angle. It looks odd.
Fred Flintstone in reverse.
Yeah. Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. No, that's the sound that makes when he's running and the car goes. You know, the.
It goes.
Oh, well. Hi, Rosie.
You're gonna put. Do you want me to put that bit in?
Yeah, put it in.
Hang on. Which one goes to the master cylinder?
Hello, hello.
So basically, I've worked out the length of this piece of wire. I'll make it a little bit longer. I'll measure up how long those unions are that go in there, those fittings are, and include a bit of space for the flare as well. And then I can cut that to the length of Bundy tube I need, and I can take a photo of it once you've finished. Once you turn that off, I'll take a photo so I know exactly the layout I had so it fits. It'll go into that bit of wiring. I'll make it a lot neater than that.
Sounds good.
Okay, that'll do.
I was about to say the same thing.
Yep.
Right, champagne.
Well, we're ready for the next stage. Ready for the next video. This is fitted out as much as I'm going to fit it out now. The next stage is to put the engine in. Everything's plumbed up and ready to go. Started putting the carpets back in. A little bit of work to do in there. but she'll get there as well. So the brake lines, we'll put the brake lines in after the motor. I'm a bit worried about this bottom one down here, the one running along there, because I'm worried about the head. It's so close to the firewall on this car. But it was unavoidable because to get that in after the motor's in is a bit of a headache with the throttle lever and everything there. So the other two lines from the brake booster to the master and back down to the junction block down there we can put in later. And that's about it. Okay then. See you later.
See ya.
Bye.